Here is Derek Carr discussing his journey to make it down here to New Orleans.
At the Pro Bowl, I went up to DeMario and Cam, and I was talking to them, and I was like, dude, like, I'm going to meet with your guys, I think, and hopefully, know how all the scheduling worked and all that. But, one thing that's important to me is how do y'all feel about it? Because they can want me all they want. But if I walk into that locker room and y'all are like, man, I don't know, or just tell me. I was dead honest. I was like, bro, just tell me. Like, I do not care. You tell me exactly what you think, and because I want to walk into a situation where people are excited to have me.
Yeah.
I'm not walking in, like, I'm going to prove it every day. I get to reinvent myself again. I get to go to a new spot and show them my work ethic, and where people aren't used to it, where they haven't seen it for 10 years.
Right.
They haven't seen all the things that I'll do or the things I do when no one's looking and all that kind of stuff to help our team just try and win. And I get to reinvent that. But I said I wanted to step in a situation where the respect and the want, the desire to win was the same. And a lot of people say they want to win, but a lot of people aren't trying to win in the same direction, And, these guys are all on the same page. They all wanted me to come. They were all fired up. And that doesn't mean we're going to win a lot of games. We have to go earn that. But what it showed me is, like, the respect of the locker room to step into that role as the leader. I can walk and step into that role, and help be one of the leaders for our football team, because they already have so many great leaders on that team. But I can step in and just, hey, here's Derek. All right, let's go. Here we go. It's not like this, I got to, prove myself. I mean, I played these guys for 9 years.
Yeah.
I played a lot of these guys multiple times. Played Tyron multiple times. I've played DeMario multiple times. Cam multiple times. I'm going to stop naming names before I forget somebody. But I've played these guys, and that was important to me, is that respect. That when I step into that locker room, that they wanted me to be there. And so the players reaching out publicly and more so privately, it meant a lot.
Okay, so a few interesting things to know. That comes from the Harvester Sports Podcast, which is a Cali-based podcast that claims to be the greatest sports podcast ever made. Pretty good get there getting Carr for the sit-down. Who's that kid? Randomly showed up there. Either way, Harvester Sports Podcast.
2.5 Men?
Actually, that's a good joke. Jake, does it do anything for your hardened, anti-Carr, cynical heart to hear that that he reached out to Cam Jordan and others and was basically like, look, if ownership wants me, whatever, that's fine, but, like, I don't want to do this if y'all don't think I'm worth it, right? Because he knew he's going to get a big number, right?
Yeah,
and that's he was kind of heading it off, saying, look, if you think that I'm not worth it and that y'all are all going to, like, kind of hate me for it, then we should just not do this.
And that's where you say, hate for Carr. It's not that at all. Like, it's just the dollars and cents of it. Like, there's a lot of things that Derek Carr's done on a football field, obviously. And I think Derek Carr is a fantastic teammate. I mean, you've always heard that from everyone. But it was what price are you going to get him at was always the conversation for me. So it's not a surprise to hear things like that. The biggest surprise maybe in the clip was his accent. He was born in Fresno, played at Fresno, has been in Oakland and Las Vegas. And I know that part of California is a little bit more country than other parts, but my goodness, he's just starting to grow legs with me a little bit just because of the accent.
He did. He had a little bit of a southern, maybe country twang. Like you said, there are parts of California that are like that a bit. I also I love the fact that he reached out to the leaders of this team. And because, look, Derek Carr, you got to understand, when he's making this decision about where to go, he kind of knows that this is his final opportunity. And certainly nobody wanted him as bad as the Saints. So you could say that, he had to take the Saints offer because nobody's going to pay him as much. And I'm not naive enough to say that that's not true. At the same time, if he really didn't like it, or if he didn't think it was going to be a fit, or if Cam Jordan and others weren't reaching out to him and expressing interest, he could have gone elsewhere. Like he could have said no to the Saints. He could have tried to force those elsewhere, taken less money if he thought it was going to be a better setting. And I think that, how do you interpret this, Jake? Players from the Saints preemptively reaching out to him, because what that tells me, and again, if we're reading through the tea leaves, like, you look at, even something like Mike Thomas's tweet, right? Where right after Carr signed, what did he say? Like, I think, thank God, or thank you, Jesus, or like something along those lines. It just feels like maybe there was a sentiment at time among the players the last couple of years they've been hamstrung by that position, whether it's been Jameis Winston or Andy Dalton. And that, do the players reaching out, does that maybe tell you that they think that Derek Carr can be an improvement upon what they've had over the last couple of years?
I mean, I think so. I think it tells you that they think they're a quarterback away from being a playoff team, and they feel like this move is something that can get them into the postseason. I certainly think that. And maybe, like, even unlocking Mike Thomas. You know what I'm saying? Like, so now Mike Thomas, because he tweeted out or whatever, like, he's excited. Maybe they think it can get him back on board and back on the right track because he's an MVP caliber type receiver when he's on that track. And if this is the thing that gets him on that track, then great. So, yeah, I think they do think they got an upgrade at quarterback, and that does help, certainly.
So a little bit of buy-in from the players there on the Derek Carr signing. We'll talk to Nick Underhill about it coming up here at 9. Nick is at the NFL owners meeting. We were just looking at the picture of, at the NFL coaches meetings. We were just looking at the picture of all the coaches during the break, doing some fit breakdowns, and we'll get to that a bit later in this hour. I will say seeing Sean Payton there made me unreasonably angry just off the bat. I continue to be a jilted lover where I think I'm over it, and then I see something or hear something that makes me mad all over again. Nick, what's going on, man? How are the meetings going?
You're pissed off that Joe Bitt isn't part of the coaching staff here in New Orleans, or what's the deal with the anger?
No. Relax. Look, it's simply, it just still feels weird, right? It's just seeing your boo on another girl's arm. And you can accuse me of living in the past. I know it's not productive at all. I know it serves no purpose, but it makes me a bit irrationally angry. And I'm not going to hide that under a bushel. Like when I saw this, it wasn't Dan Campbell's ridiculously fitting, overly large dress shirt that jumped out immediately. It was Sean Payton sitting there all happy and rested looking, ready to coach the Denver Broncos. Screw him. And then you got Dennis Allen.
They took Jamar Cain yesterday.
They took Jamar Cain. That's right. Then you got Dennis Allen sitting there looking like he's trying to get in with LaFleur and Sean McVay, but he's kind of McVay, but he's kind of like the fringe guy a little bit. But whatever. It doesn't matter. Nick, what are these meetings like from your perspective? Covering them, like, is there anything of interest that you learn, or like, what's the goal in going to these as a journalist?
Yeah, well, first, the thing that makes me mad about Sean is that he shows up to everything on time now. And like, we used to sit on hold for like hours. There was one year at the meetings, like the breakfast where you talk to the coaches ended, and Sean was walking in when it ended, and like me and Larry Holder just like sitting at a lonely table with the Sean Payton name tag and no Sean Payton. So him being on time, I think is a personal insult.
Unreal
to me. So, but yeah, I mean, covering these things, it's just kind of like everybody's at a resort. It's in Arizona one year, it's in Florida the next, and it's just kind of everybody's relaxed, hanging out. You're all just kind of like in a hotel lobby, and basically anybody you'd want to see that's attached to the league is here right now. And in this setting, they're kind of more willing to sit down and talk. Like, they got their families there. Like, everybody's just like in a good mood. And I mean, you find out some stuff, but kind of what happened in free agency, just what they're thinking going forward. So it's a good checkpoint every year to kind of reset the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, for me, sorry, T-Bob, but it's like SEC spring meetings that I cover down in Destin. Like, the coaches are in such a good mood because there's not a game coming soon.
Yeah.
And you get more insight maybe, and Nick, and I don't know if you agree, like, they are just more open because they don't have to worry about game planning, and you're in this setting, and they do have their families there, and they're like, yeah, sure, I'll sit down and give you 15 minutes when normally they'll give you 3.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing that helps too is that it's a smaller crowd. There's not 20 reporters from each team. It's like 2 or 3. Kind of have good relationships with the people that are there. They're comfortable with the media that's there. They kind of know the stuff you're writing and saying, and nobody's out to get them. So, I mean, yeah, this is kind of actually my favorite thing every year to cover. We don't stay at the resort. We stay at Hilton a mile and a half away and walk to the resort. But, I mean, it's a decent time. And yeah, I mean, like, usually Gail Benson's at an NBA thing right now, but even she's here, and this is like the one time a year we talk to her usually. So it's a good event.
Nick, have you managed to uncover any collusion amongst the coaches when it comes to Lamar Jackson?
I have not. I mean, man, him dropping that tweet like as John Harbaugh sat down at a table yesterday was just a complete work of art. I don't know if that's his A-level trolling. I don't know if somebody was advising him on that, but that couldn't have been better timed. I was impressed by that. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. Like if the Jets don't get this Aaron Rodgers thing done, like do they start looking at him out? I don't know what happens there, but it kind of feels like a reconciliation has to happen, but it seems like it's going to be really hard to make it happen. It seems like, some bridges are starting to get burned a little bit, but it's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out.
Nick, obviously, look, that's nothing to do with the New Orleans Saints, but as you said, these meetings are looking at everything as a whole. We continue to talk about Derek Carr here locally. There's a pretty good clip making the rounds from the Harvester Sports podcast where Carr talks about reaching out to Cam Jordan, some of the other leaders of the team, right? And he's basically saying, look, if ownership wants me, that is what it is, but what do y'all want, right? Because he doesn't want to come in there, be making all this money, and everybody's going to be kind of, side-eyeing him or being like, God, I can't believe we paid this guy. He sucks. And then Carr goes on to talk about, the personal conversations that he's had with the players and the guys reaching out to him and everything. And it kind of creates a bit of a picture where, I don't know, is it unfair for me to make the leap that the players were not happy with quarterback play the last couple of years and that the players view Carr as a potential, pretty significant upgrade at that position?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. We see some of the tweets and stuff too. Like different guys were campaigning for him, and I think it's like anything. They've been injury bitten at that position, and the results weren't there. And they're looking at how do we get better. And I think Derek Carr is someone that they think makes him better. I mean, the organization as a whole thinks he's going to make him better. They paid him $35 million a year because they believe he's going to accomplish that task. So, yeah, I think that's a fair assessment for sure. I mean, look, Andy Dalton's a backup quarterback. Like, if he's your starter, you're probably not looking at your team and feeling great about your prospects for the upcoming season. And he played most of the year last year. So I do think that's a shared sentiment throughout the building. And they should feel that way. If they didn't feel that way, we'd kind of be talking about this like they made a grave mistake. And we still don't know if it's going to lead to success. But I think we at least can look at the thought process and understand why they did it. And the reason they did is because it's the same thing we've been saying for 2 years. The quarterback play's got to be better. I mean, I don't think anything anyone's seen from a distance is outlandish. And yeah, I mean, I think that's extremely fair to say.
Hey, Nick, I want to ask you about a player to see maybe if you have an idea of what the Saints' plans are for this player, and that's Rashid Shaheed. Last year, I thought he was fantastic down the stretch. He had almost 500 yards receiving, certainly was a big play threat, 17.4 yards a catch, which actually was best for second in the NFL. Oh, wow. So he was somebody, obviously, that the Saints counted on down the stretch of the season, but now you've got Michael Thomas coming back. You have, obviously, Olave still there. Do you think he gets an opportunity to be the third receiver on this team?
I say this like completely is not any analysis on Chris Olave. It's just about how good I thought he played down the stretch. But like, say somewhere like around week 14, week 15, you had no idea how they acquired these wide receivers, and Olave's out there and Shaheed's out there, and you said which one was the first round pick. I think it would have been hard to determine. I mean, I thought he played that good. And I think there's still a lot of room for growth. I mean, he runs the whole route tree. He creates a lot of separation. His routes are savvy. I think he's going to keep getting better and get more polished. I mean, coming from Weber State, it's kind of, a big jump in coaching. I think there's a lot of room for him to get better. So I would be surprised if he's not the number 3 guy. And I'm a little surprised, like, how many fans are, like, clamoring over them drafting, like, another receiver in the mold of Olave and Shaheed. I think they got that covered. You can always get better, but I don't see that as a need at all. I think these two guys kind of got those 2 spots set.
Nick, one storyline that happened recently that is tinged with, some just some bad news, right, is the Foster Moreau situation where it comes out that during a physical with the New Orleans Saints that he has Hodgkin's lymphoma he has lymphoma. He's going to be fighting it. He's an ass kicker. We're all supporting him in this fight, obviously. Do you know how far along things had gotten with the New Orleans Saints? It does seem like Foster would have perfectly matched what the Saints are looking for at that position.
I mean, typically when they bring a guy in for a physical, that's the last step before they sign the contract. You know, like Edwards, they just signed the wide receiver. Like they kind of had the process, and he comes in, gets the physical. Physical's good, he signs. So I would assume it was pretty far down the road there, and he would have been a good fit with this team. I mean, the contested catch stuff we're talking about. I just wrote a story on New Orleans football and kind of breaking down like the contested catch guys the Saints have had versus the ones that the Raiders had had. He was at the top of that list, like since 2018 forward during his time with the Raiders. So he would have added to that really well. And I think he would have been a great fit on this team. It's just crazy that they found this. I mean, on one hand, you want to say it's unfortunate because it like interrupts his life, but the fact that you catch it before it catches you, I mean, it's a massive blessing for him that this played out like that. And you know, Dr. Amos, like he's caught like 3 or 4 of these. There's a few of them, you know, that we've heard whispers about that weren't super public, catching serious stuff with people on these physicals. And you know, he's incredibly thorough on this. But we know Nick Fairley, John Durembos. I mean, there's been a few of them over the years, and I mean, it's just unbelievable how this happens. Praise to him. Hopefully this goes, you know, as they hope, and everything gets better. But I do think that he probably would have been a member of the team if this hadn't happened.
Yeah, and like T-Bob said, Foster Moreau is certainly not somebody that I would ever bet against. We just seen him too many times overcome so many different things. Nick, I want to ask you, last one for me, about the draft and maybe where the Saints go. Has it changed over the last couple of days and weeks? Because we've talked about it. Defensive line obviously was a point of emphasis, but you've signed a couple of defensive linemen. Do you still think they look there in the first round and even maybe still at 40 as well?
I still think that has to be the priority position, and we're kind of hearing that a little bit too. That they're still looking at it. I could still see a free agent addition, but I do think that you need to try to find a way to get younger at that spot. And the more and more I think about it, like if they don't sign somebody, I think the odds of them trading up to get one kind of increase a little bit. And they got the ammo to do it too.
Yeah.
And I think it's a must. Like they keep telling us they feel okay about those positions, that maybe they just need a little bit more depth. But again, I disagree kind of strongly with that take. I don't see enough guys that can win one-on-one. You got to get some pass rush, and I think it has to be a priority for him.
Nick, you have a great article right up right now in New Orleans Football in which you're breaking down one area in which Derek Carr is elite. It's throwing into tight windows like contested coverage, and it really is quite spectacular. But outside of that, in New Orleans Football now, you triple the team. What are you kind of chewing on with the Saints right now? Like, what is interesting you most with the franchise? What storyline has kind of piqued you?
I mean, I think it's everything. I mean, they're kind of in like stage 2 of this second stanza post, or the stanza post Sean Payton, and you can look at it and kind of see that everything was kind of snake bitten last year with the injuries and just kind of the coaching staff trying to figure out where it fit in and everybody fitting together. The defensive staff, which looked like a strength, apparently being a big weakness since everybody kind of got pushed out of that and moved on to different places. So it's just kind of how does everything fit together with the new quarterback, and can DA, corral this thing? After last year, it looked like it was kind of spinning out of control, and they got it back on track, I think, late in the season. Like, is there actual momentum there? I mean, I'm fascinated with all of that. How does Pete Carmichael kind of figure out his way is the main offensive identity of this team? I mean, there's just so much that I think is fascinating right now. And, it's just a team building too. I mean, I'm excited about this season, probably more so than I have been in previous years. I think I talked myself into being hyped every single year by this point. Like, Jameis Winston's Instagram videos, he looks great. I think he's going to, I'm just a forever optimist, but I think that the pieces actually are there for them to be decent. I mean, the division's weak, the schedule's weak. FanDuel just set the line at 9.5. I think that's kind of a diabolical number for the over-under win total, but it kind of feels right. And I mean, if you can get to that point, you're in the playoffs. So I kind of like the direction, but I just want to see if everything solidifies. And I'm a little bit less blindly faithful to their path now. I mean, I think the eyes have been opened a little bit, but it's going to be interesting to see how it all comes together.
Nick Underhill on Twitter at Nick_Underhill. And look, man, there's nobody else that I enjoy exploring the offseason with more than New Orleans Football. So sign up today. It is so worth it. They got all the best info, all the best angles, food for thought, everything when it comes to your New Orleans Saints. Nick, enjoy the meetings, man, and here's to hoping you get some juicy tidbits.
Thanks, man. Have a good one. Take it easy, guys.
All right, take it easy, Nick Underhill. Love Nick. Yeah, those unfortunately those are the things that like the information you gather is not really information you can ever use explicitly. You can kind of use it to maybe form some opinions that you will later put out there, right? Or kind of like you can weave it in subtle ways, but yeah, it's generally a time when you're going to get a lot of intel and you just have to kind of filter it through your brain. How do I manage relationships? How do I present it to the public? What needs to be presented? And what do I need to keep kind of under, kind of hidden away a little bit because it needs to be if I want these people to keep talking to me. It's a delicate balance.
It is. Yeah, and he does a good job.
Yeah.
He does a good job. I mean, there's a lot of reporters out there, but the reporters that do a good job and understand that balance, those are the reporters that are at this event.
Yeah, exactly.
To his
Exactly.
point.
Yeah, that's how you make it there for sure.